Welcome to Almost Pro, the podcast where we shine a light on the athletes whose stories go beyond the scoreboard and the experts that guided them. Today, I get the pleasure of introducing not just my co-host, but one of my favourite humans. Laura grew up on the tennis court and still can't resist the smell of a fresh can of tennis balls. She's worked in sport development, has a knack for asking the questions that get athletes to open up, and importantly, she never turns down a good coffee. She also has a secret talent for sport history, which explains why she always brings the context that makes our conversations so rich.
And across from me is Frances. She's spent over 20 years leading big projects and advising national sporting bodies, but sport has always been her heartbeat. She was a passionate soccer player until, as she puts it, her body said no more. She's trekked Kokoda solo. She's an award-winning businesswoman, and she's fearless about diving headfirst into new challenges. Basically, she brings the grit, courage, and straight-up honesty that makes Almost Pro what it is.
What a duo.
I know.
What a duo. Such a pleasure that we get to do this.
Oh, it's just the best.
So today, we're doing something a bit different. We have heard your comments. We've received your messages. You want to know who we are. So we decided today we'd introduce ourselves. We're not here to tell you the full story of how we've lived our lives over the decades we've been on Earth, but we're going to try and uncover a little bit, so at least it feels like you know us a little better. So let's not beat around the bush, my friend Laura. Where are you on Earth right now?
Yeah, I am a few miles away from you and the rest of Australia. Yeah, just a couple. I'm in Florida in the USA in my little Almost Pro office here, which if it was daytime has a nice little view of a local golf course. So that's a real plus. But it is definitely not daytime where I am compared to where you are, which is...
It is daytime, actually, where I am in beautiful Queensland in Australia. So while we share the same accent, we live on a different axis of the Earth. And that for us has its own story, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to take everyone back to the start, don't we?
Yeah. Let's go from the start. Let's take it from the top. And there'll be bits that we're definitely not telling everyone about, but let's just say our crossover and Almost Pro's birth took place in a bar in Boston.
Yeah, people definitely don't need all of the details here, but we had the enormous privilege to represent our university at the National Sport Forum in Boston earlier this year. And honestly, Frances, I think you tell this bit better than I do because I always end up at the bar way too quick.
You heard it here first. I love it. I love it. So, yeah, I think our story is a fun one because Almost Pro must have been bubbling somewhere in the back of our brains, but it just never had a safe place to land. And actually, that sounds really cute, by the way. A little safe space for each other. I love it. Anyway, we go to the National Sports Forum and shout out to Ron Seaver and his team who have been amazing for us both at that event and behind the scenes. But we go to this event. They have a conference bar. We, of course, diligently attend the conference bar and a bunch of Aussies sitting around having lots of discussions leads to Laura and I in a conversation about our own experiences. And somewhere in there, we share that neither of us can tell the story of settling on a multi-million-dollar contract as sports people. But we had some really, really shared philosophy around the way that sport in our life has shaped who we are as humans. And let's face it, informed the reason we were sitting in a bar in Boston together, right?
Yeah, one of the things that really got me with that experience was we did start to open up. We did start to have this realization, oh, okay, like we have this similarity here with trying to share our stories, but the amount of people that were listening in that would just come over and get snippets of it and be like, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same.
exactly.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And so what it was this conversation about the way that sport has changed over the years and how individuals have stuck at it and either not been able to create a career out of it because of commercial reasons, because so many sports in so many nations across the globe require us to work our full-time jobs in order to fund this pursuit that we have in sport, and therefore limit the hours that we can commit to the sport around everything else in life. Or injury has prevented us. Or in some cases, people we spoke to just in our time in Boston, they were quick to share with us that actually the institutions they were part of prevented them from making anything
Mm.
of their sport. Personality clashes, policy changes, the being a woman at the wrong time in certain sport histories where they weren't able to actually make something of the sport. So where we landed was we actually named Almost Pro while we were there.
Yep.
We kind of built this prototype of what we wanted it to be. We knew we wanted it to be a podcast. We knew we wanted it to be audio. We knew there were loads of stories to tell, and we weren't wrong. Since the day we opened up applications, we have had the most incredible response from the most incredible people. But the thing that we found prevented us from launching back then was this fear that as people who have been involved in sport, you'd share your story and someone would say, "Oh, so you didn't do anything with it?" Or like,
Yes.
did you train with, oh, you don't know those people? Oh, well, they're household names and you're not. So people, we thought we would struggle to get people to step forward because a sports person who has made Olympic history, but not made a career, hasn't necessarily always become a household name. And therefore, they've felt that their story wasn't worth telling. And we thought, how do we convince them otherwise? And the most beautiful thing we've seen is that we haven't had to. We've just said, we'll help you. We'll help you to tell that story. So a beer in a bar in Boston
Or
between
a
two
few.
Australian girls, a few beers. Okay, a few beers. You're right. Good correction. Between two Australian girls living on opposite sides of the globe has become this space where we have met the most amazing people, where we've been
Yeah.
inspired on the daily by the stories we're hearing and totally energized to do this, to tell the podcast stories of athletes from all codes, from codes we're learning about as we're talking to people, and stories across the globe. It's been
Yeah.
amazing.
What gets me is how every story is so unique. There's some common themes that you touched on between the financial constraints or the systems that were in place when they were playing their sport, but every story is so unique. Everyone has their own ups, downs, and it's so personal as well. So to be able to give this space for people to open up and share them is just something that is just so special to be a part of and watch it happen in real time. I'm constantly reminded why this space is so important.
And
You
what a
know,
privilege it is to be in
absolutely.
these seats.
Yes.
Yeah, so cool.
Yep.
And the thing that we've seen with a lot of people is they started sport young and it didn't have tags on it. It was never, you're the 6-year-old on the tennis court and don't you worry, in 10 years' time you'll be making tennis history. You will be pro. It
Mm.
was just a kid with a racket who just wanted to hit a ball as hard as they could. And then somewhere along the line, someone taught them what the white lines did. And then somewhere along the line, so this notion of pro is fed as we grow. But when you're that little kid and you're just out there having a whack around, there's just been something so beautiful in watching the purity of that part of every story we've heard.
Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know if I do. Do you remember what's the earliest memory you have of being in sport, Laura? Like, or playing?
Oh gosh. You know what? I think my memory from way back then is probably better than my short-term memory now. So my first
Is it the beers that we had in Boston?
look, we don't need to go into details, but I think my first memory I might have been about 3, to be honest. And
What?
yeah, and I remember I I didn't understand tennis. I knew that I really wanted to hit a ball, and my first piece of equipment was a little mini cricket bat that I had when I was 3 and a totem tennis pole, and
Oh,
which is where you
yeah.
put it in the ground and the ball spins
Yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah.
And so I remember being out there hitting this thing with the cricket bat for hours. and my parents looking out and thinking, well, that's not the ballet dancer we intended. And
But also that is precision. Cricket bat,
right?
tennis ball, round and round. I like this.
I peaked way too soon.
You heard it here. 3 is where it's at for Laura.
That's it. And then it took off from there, I think. But I remember that feeling of this feels right, even
Mm.
back then, and it was comfortable and it was fun. Yeah, and this felt like the right space. What about you? What was your first memory?
My first memory is probably watching my siblings play and thinking, why do I have to be the little one?
Oh, you're the
Why
youngest
can't I
sibling.
have a turn? And I went to a really, really, really small North Queensland country school.
Right.
So very, very small, which meant we all sort of competed in sports together. It kind of didn't matter what grade, because to get enough people, you just kind of needed everyone in there.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, yeah. And maybe I didn't notice it as much as or even recognize that there was a challenge in that, because I was already the youngest in my home. So I was
Mm.
playing against bigger siblings whenever we were doing anything anyway. But I do remember joining a football, like a soccer team at under sevens, and thinking, well, this is cool. Like, they all look about my size. and and just the novelty of having kids that like looked 7. so that's my earliest memory of being in an organized sport, I suppose, is playing soccer. And my brothers had played, and then my sister also played after that. So it wasn't long before it was kind of almost the way we did community, and the morphing between starting and kicking a ball for the first time through to being at the clubhouse almost every night of the week, depending on which one of us was training, and all day Saturday, and my parents trudging all of us across wherever we needed to be. It happened pretty quickly in my mind. It happened pretty quickly that it became this family sport and a community entrenchment.
And did you love it? Like, was that
Mate,
like,
I loved it. I
yeah?
loved my sister will tell this story of trying to study. So as she's getting older, she's trying to study, and me having a football. So outside, we had this giant wall kind of across the line of our garage, the outside of our garage, and it had this window that I wasn't allowed to hit, which was kind
Mhm.
of the opposite of the way kids train now. So my top bins were about making sure the glass didn't get smashed, go either side, and I would smack this ball against the wall on repeat until I needed the next ball. And I would belt it, left foot, right foot. I gave myself every drill you can think of, because I lived for that thing at my feet. Like, I lived to kick a ball. It was the best part of my days. I'd get home from soccer and I would just smash it. But you can picture now, right? The dunk, the dunk,
Yeah.
the dunk. The person inside trying to do anything that required focus probably wasn't about that. They weren't that
But, like,
excited for me.
accuracy training though,
Right?
like,
Thank you.
don't hit the
Thank you.
window, like, yeah, these are great drills.
Thank you. Broke nothing, I'll have you know. I never once smashed that window.
That is amazing. See?
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
meant to play that sport. It was
Well, at least at that point in my
yeah.
life. There was probably a time when I could have given it up a little bit earlier, but I was committed. I was going in until the body was like, as you said in the intro, like, so injured that there's only
Yeah.
so much tape you can put on before you go, "Okay, what percentage of me is body exposed and what percentage of me is actually tape now? It's probably time to call it."
I feel like that's a very real point that every athlete gets to, right? Like, okay, well, what haven't I injured at this point
Yeah.
in time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is my investment in this strapping tape per
That's it.
week versus my registration fees? Like, what's the
Yes.
where am I at here? Where is the axis of these 2 meeting?
Our poor parents.
Well, no, because when I gave up, I was paying for it. It was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Okay, well, this day I'm going to work just to support my strapping tape habit, because I had to strap for training in the end, and I'm strapping for games in the end."
You
There's
know
a
what? This
point
is
where you
such a
just
good
gotta know.
point. Why don't either of us have shares in one of these companies? Like, this is y
Why don't either of us have shares in
I'm just
this?
gonna make a note for after this. That
You
is
know,
our
maybe
next move.
maybe that would be Almost Pro's first investment.
Yeah, it needs
Strapping
to be.
tape.
I can't believe it wasn't our first thought.
Brand sponsors for athletes, but only for tape.
That's it.
I love it. I love
Wow.
it so much. So anyway, that was kind of the beginning and the end. The beginning was, a little kid who'd seen other people doing it and was inspired to give it a crack. And the end was, half of my body weight now is made up of what I've added in strapping tape to walk out here. It's probably time.
And now, time for a short break. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to join the Almost Pro community and stay up to date with the latest episodes and news. To find out more or to apply to be a guest, visit almostpropodcast.com today. So, putting aside the strapping tape, did you ever think that you might go pro?
No, because it was long enough ago now that girls really didn't. The journey for female athletes in soccer was not what it is today. You
Yeah.
didn't see the players that were playing at any high levels. In fact, competitions were so limited. And, if I was playing now, and I do a bit of work in female football development, and what I love about that is I do get to see girls and I do get to show them the people that they can see doing this for a job.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
It
awesome.
wasn't that for me. My sister played, and she's a few years older than me, but even for her, I still learnt she was very good in the position that she played, but her journey ended because ultimately, at that point, you needed to make a choice, and it wasn't a choice to play soccer or not. It was a choice to continue playing alongside every other commitment you had in life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Definitely, as
Yeah.
women back then, even really up until very recent years, particularly for a sport like soccer, praise the Matildas for making so much change so quickly in the sport
Right?
in the last couple of
Right?
years. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't know what it would look like today, but I do hold in really, really high regard that young girls today can see a pathway if they so choose.
Yeah. Someone
Where at
to
least
look up
choices
to as
there.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What about you in tennis? Did you think that was it for you?
Look, I wanted it to be, I think,
Yeah.
is really the main thing. So I didn't know, and nor did my family really know any of the systems on how to make it happen. As I mentioned,
Mm,
my mum was really holding out for the ballet gig, but that was not going to happen. So that it just wasn't the knowledge in the world of tennis. So that's even down to knowing that tournaments exist, really,
yeah.
which seems pretty simple to us now. But back then, it was okay, well, there's not any female specific training. There isn't even the Hot Shots program that's really renowned in Australia, and I know the
Mm,
US has their own version of that through the USTA,
mm,
the United States Tennis Association. So back then, when I was training, you played with the same tennis ball that the adults hit with. We didn't have many rackets that fit the size of our body. We just had the giant adult ones, or at least I did. and and then there was the coaches, they would run a good coaching session. It was a little bit military style back then, but that's okay. And yeah,
everything was.
pardon?
Everything was.
Everything, yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, so I really wanted it to be, but the pathways weren't there like they are now. And I'm
Yeah,
so
wow.
happy that they are there now. But there's a bit of me that goes, damn, it would have been great
Yeah.
if it was back then. But I held on with the dream and everything until my body was taped up and too injured to sort of continue. And then the very real questions of, okay, well, what am I doing to make myself money now? I've got to
Mm,
build a career that I can support myself even if I chose to keep playing. You've got to have an
yeah.
income.
Think that goes to the heart of what did sport give you?
Mm,
So that ability to transition, like you just said, I've reached this point, I've tried the pathways I know, because there's going to be others that I just don't know about. They just haven't made their way to the two girls in the land down under. But I think there's this piece of me that goes, what I take from the sporting chapter of my life, I think has shaped absolutely every other thing I've touched or done.
that's fair.
Right? So
Mm,
so even though we can sit here with some sense of nostalgia and then also a sense of what if, the reality is every single lesson of being in the sport that I was involved in played out in the way my career then unfolded. So it became really important to me to work in teams. It became really important to me to understand my role within a team. I captained a lot of the sides that I played in. That played out in the way I approached then my career and
Mm,
the ease that I found myself in leadership roles. And the way to get the best out of people, you find out by playing in that environment that some people respond really, really well to something that says perhaps you're not moving fast enough and you might like to sit on the bench for a little while. And there's some people that go, "Well, I'm not gonna let you do that to me twice, so wait till I come back and show you how much faster I can move."
mm.
And then other people respond really well to just a good dose of encouragement. You know, "You did good there, give it another nudge." That was also the themes of my management style that I went on to deliver in the time that I'd finished playing sport.
Yeah, I think these things can be so easily overlooked, and they often are overlooked, particularly when you are going through the transition period of sport to working career or whichever occupation you choose. And unless you take that minute to think, okay, well, what did I actually get out of sport that I played
Mhm.
that I can use? Like I said, I think a lot of times people don't realize the transferable skills that they've,
Yeah,
spent their junior career or their sporting career learning that can put them ahead of so many people
so
in these
true.
working environments.
And make your own lives easier. You know, when
Yes,
you recognize that
absolutely.
you've skills and that they weren't just tennis specific and they weren't just soccer specific, but actually they were people specific,
Mhm.
and I can bring them to the spaces where I'm now engaging with people, and that is I played that role on the pitch because that is inherently the center of my values.
Yeah.
You know, so when I go into a different environment, those values stay with me. Let's not make them soccer values. Let's make them Francis's values.
Yeah.
Tell me then, from your perspective, I say all of that from a team sport, but what you've been able to teach me in the time you and I have been chatting sport is that tennis is a team sport. While there's one athlete standing with the racket and the ball, you know, I would previously have said to you, "Oh, that they're kind of the principles of playing in a team." What you've been able to teach me is actually you were part of a team, but also an athlete then needing to perform from their own mental tank when they're on the court. Whereas I could draw on my players, they could draw on me. We were able to kind of feed each other's energy. We watch tennis players, we watch the moment where we go, "Oh, they're mentally checking out here." You see less of that in team sports because people recognize it first and they feed each other whatever fuel they
Mm.
need to keep going. You've kind of played in a sport that plays in both. It's a team sport with an individual output.
Yeah, I think every child is different, obviously, and every person is different in how they approach life as an adult as well. But with tennis, I think it gives you this really unique opportunity to challenge yourself individually and go, okay, I am 100% responsible today for my win or my loss.
Mm,
And or what I learn and take away from any kind of a loss today, because a loss is only a matter of perception, right? You can lose 6 love in tennis and still walk away feeling like a winner because you've learned something. But ha- being able to have the platform, the opportunity to develop that mental ability of, okay, I need to stand on my own 2 feet here. I am 100% responsible. Also, I am responsible for how I react to the situation. If I don't walk away with a win today, is something that I think tennis can uniquely provide. And I'm
mm.
not saying that everybody needs that. Some people just have it, but I think for me that was very helpful. And also, I really enjoyed doubles in tennis. So
Did
I
you?
loved, I loved the team. I loved singles, but I really enjoyed doubles.
Yeah,
Uh, just playing doubles is something else.
yeah,
It's a whole different vibe. You've got your teammate there, and I can only imagine that that's similar to what playing soccer feels like. And I
yeah.
really enjoyed that a lot. I think at one stage I was ranked a lot higher in doubles than singles.
Right.
And then so you've got both the best of both worlds, I think, with tennis. You've
Mm,
got the standing on your own 2 feet, and then you've also got being in a team environment. I think what you don't have so much exposure to is a experience working with larger teams and going, okay, well, what is my individual role that I need to perform for the wider group? Because you've got one other person on your team. And even if you are playing in singles and you've got your coach or your physio or whoever it is that's part of your traveling team to tournaments, there's a lot of components, I think, where I know now that a lot of parents mix, their child will play not just one sport, they'll play tennis and then they'll
Yeah.
play soccer and then they might also do swimming. And to give them that experience of, okay, well, how can we set our child up for the best future and develop all of these skills?
Mm. Do you
So
find now you work better on your own or you prefer to have people around you?
it depends on the environment. It's very situational. There isn't a blanket rule. I'm not going to lie. At uni, I definitely preferred individual individual assignments.
Shout out to all the uni students suffering through group assessments right now.
Right?
Love it.
But there's lots of situations, particularly with work, where I really loved getting the group together and trying to tackle an issue and trying to develop something new. I love listening to everybody's unique creativity. So when it came to teams at work, I really love the input that everybody had, and you just don't get that same level of input when you're by yourself. So I think it's
Yeah.
just very situational.
And arguing with ChatGPT is exhausting.
Yeah,
You
well, it
don't
took me a long time to realize the existence of ChatGPT, and now I never need to have another thought.
Yeah, no, you really do need a team around you at this point. You've
Yeah.
fallen into the AI web. We need you back.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, you've kind of touched on that, the individual player, the team player. Did you and you talked about that move out of sport and then needing to focus on career. Did you, when you finished tennis, feel like your identity had been tied up in it and you had to find a new place to put it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's the number one struggle, is when you have committed yourself 100%. So that means over earning, as in your income, over family,
Mm.
over friends, over everything. So 100% commitment into a sport, and then to it's often not sudden, but it feels sudden, whether it is or it isn't, to go, okay, this will be my last tournament, or
Mhm.
I'm moving on from this in one way or another. And
Mm.
that loss of identity hits hard. I'm not saying it hits hard for everyone, but it certainly hit hard for me, and I feel for everyone that goes through that, because you have chased the dream
Yeah.
and you learn from a young age, if you write your dream down and you stick it on the fridge and you say it out loud to yourself every single morning and you work as hard as you possibly can, you'll achieve your dreams. And
Mm.
getting to the stage where you realize, I'm going to have to achieve this dream in a different capacity, is a very difficult moment to go through, I think. To go,
Yeah.
okay, well, how can I make this happen in a different way?
And I
Yeah.
reckon I reckon the tying up of your identity in any one thing makes losing any part of it really difficult.
Mm,
Whether it's a sporting identity that you've had for a long time or a short time. We've spoken to people who their dreams in certain sports have been brief because of injuries, or whether your identity is tied up in your career, or whether your identity is tied up in your role in your family, or whatever it is. I think identity shifting has to be one of the hardest things that humans encounter
yeah.
because it takes the whole ecosystem with it. It's Laura the tennis player, but because of the hours that playing that sport demanded of you, that's actually where all your social interaction comes from. Because you can't have friends outside of those things when you need to be there so often to be good at
Yeah.
these, right?
Yeah.
So wrapping up, a sport like that strips away your capacity to engage socially with the people you've spent a lot of time with, not just spent time with, but they get you on that really, really deep level of understanding what it means to do the thing you do.
Mm.
And I know that from a soccer perspective, that you're training 2 afternoons or nights a week, you're playing on weekends, and then you're spending the time after your games together and likely parts of the weekend as well because you're spending so much of your non-working hours with people that are doing the same thing as you. And
Yeah.
when you retire or age out or whatever it is that happens to end your career or your sporting time, those people don't necessarily stop too. And so you get to watch them continue to do the thing that you used to be a part of. The photos that you see of them now used to have you in them as well.
Yeah.
And I think then there's that really deep component, and whether it's still the smell of opening new tennis balls or, in my case, the smell of deep heat in the dressing sheds,
Yeah, right.
those things live long. And
Yeah.
so you can go back into a community environment like a soccer club, and it actually doesn't matter what level of competition they're playing at. There is a thing that happens inside you that goes, "Ah, there it is." There it is.
Yeah. And now, time for a short break. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to join the Almost Pro community and stay up to date with the latest episodes and news. To find out more or to apply to be a guest, visit almostpropodcast.com today. When transitioning out of soccer, was that your experience as well, that shift in identity?
Yes, yes, but I was already in a fairly solid career. Having said that, though, I found I was the one transitioning sort of through those friendships. So they continued to play. At no point did they make me feel like I couldn't go and watch them play and then go out with them afterwards and do whatever was happening on the weekends. But I think when you've lost the locker room conversation,
Mm,
when you're not part of that slide tackle, that yellow card, that send off, that whatever, in fact, year after year, it becomes really evident you actually don't know all of the players anymore.
yeah.
It's kind of then that you have to take the lead in your own transition and go, I'm not even sure this is home for me anymore. And it's okay that some of those friendships were seasonal. Do not get me wrong, some of my best friends to this day are people that I've met wearing our club colours and have hustled alongside and probably sworn at each other on the field and off the field over something that most likely it was me who did the wrong thing. But anyway, forget that. Doesn't matter. But the point is, there are friendships you take out of it that are lifetime, but there are also moments in those sporting careers that are seasonal. So whether you like it or not, transition's gonna happen in one way or another, right?
Mm,
Identity's shifting, so
yep.
transition is inevitable. And we can apply that into every circumstance in life. I can say that as a mum and the season of my life before becoming a mum, the season of my life as a mum. I can say that as moments now of being a mum where I feel like I don't get to do the other stuff without wearing that title. It's a thing that I take into each of those rooms. It's probably me who carries it in there
Mm,
because I bear that now as part of the identity of who I am today. I think it's the same when you're a soccer player or a tennis player. You go into certain environments, and now when our kids play, I still feel like I want to coach from the sidelines because I know the rules. I understand what's happening out on the field, and I know if they just had a dose of this little magic, a little bit of this advice, maybe things could happen. And it takes every bit of me to go, this isn't your journey. This
mm,
isn't for you now. This is for them now. And so the piece where I get to smell the deep heat is to join committees, to involve myself in sport at a level that now says I've got professional know how and I've also got player perspective. What influence then can I have on making this journey better for every athlete that I can be a part of, their journey, their life, whatever it is? How can I make this a better place from an advocacy position rather than strapping on a pair of boots?
yeah, I would argue that there is no one better positioned to play those roles and advocate for changes in sport than athletes that have given it their all and use those skills to try and better the future of that sport. They're the ones that know every way that it doesn't work,
Mm, mm,
and that puts them in a really unique, valuable position to be
mm,
able to
mm.
contribute. Yeah.
And we get it wrong from time to time where we put athletes in positions that have the wrong titles for them.
Mm,
But I think when you're talking advocacy and ambassadors and people that can see the sport, the athletes, and the institutions for what they are, talk to someone who's been in it,
yep.
right? It's so real. And again, let's apply that more broadly, whether it's
Mm.
sport, whether it's career, whether it's any other identity shift. Ask a soldier. The identity you had when you're a soldier, if they stand in front of another soldier, they open a directory of language that civilians will never read. I have no idea what that conversation is going to be about. But I can tell you now, the two people involved who are ex-military, have served in some sense, they know each other's language because at a point in time that identity was shared and it never goes away.
Yep.
So now when you stand in front of another tennis player, and in fact, when you and I interview tennis players, a language falls out of you that is scripted by the identity that you held as a tennis player and as a
Yeah,
coach in
of
tennis.
course. You do this for years and years, and it is your whole
Yeah.
identity. So of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
And take it into anything. We can apply
Mm.
that into so many senses. You know, there's things that I can hear the kids talking about where I go, "Oh my goodness, what is this language that you speak?" And it is, if you bracket them, it's because they live in this age range, and in that age range, they know things about this specific thing, and I go, "Okay, that's obviously important to your identity.
Yeah.
It's not something I can relate to. Could you break it down for mama?"
Okay, but mind you, that is basically like a whole other language these days. So
Fair, fair,
we
fair,
all
fair.
just try our best to keep up, but
So real,
no one
so
knows
real,
what's going on.
and you would see that in coaching, right? This,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I need to clarify because I feel like I've made us sound like we're 80 in like, "Well, I haven't played that for a while,"
That's because 'cause we've had
and
that many injuries, that's how we truly feel.
I know. Our children are not 30, I swear. But in coaching, right, you would see that you are still youthful, but these kids that come through with their own language
Mm,
and you're trying to teach them a whole new language, tennis talk, and it changes every generation. You would have
yeah.
coached a few by now.
Definitely, and cultural changes as well. You know, we were touched on before that we both grew up with very sort of military style
Yeah.
rules. That's not gonna
Yeah.
fly in 2025, you know? It's
Yeah.
a very different world out there, and so
Yeah.
you have all of these skills and you have all this know-how like you would in football, I do in tennis, and you get out there and you think, "Great, I can impart some of this knowledge," and then you have to stop and go, hold on, I've got to approach this differently to what it was approached with me when I was growing up. What was it that I needed and I wanted that I
Yeah.
can now, I've got the great position of being able to change and go, okay, I can do this better, or I can make this change and learn how to impart this knowledge in today's culture.
Yeah. What do you reckon makes you a good coach?
Well, that is a broad question. That's, I think compassion is probably right up there. I think to
Mm.
me that it comes down to that. You can't push everyone to your agenda. You can't push people outside of what they want to achieve. Sport overall is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something you enjoy, and I think
Say it
everyone should have
again.
that.
Say it again, because it's
Well,
so true.
yeah. You know, and so I think that has to be at the forefront of every single coach is how can I make this an enjoyable experience where they want to come
Yeah.
back?
What do you reckon about then this new agenda and newish agenda of talent identification in some sports at like 6?
I get it in a way because
Do you?
you don't want to it's a bit like my current golfing journey that let's be honest, it's not going to go anywhere. But
Go on a minute. Go on a minute. Because last I heard, you and I were taking up Olympic shooting because we've heard that you can start shooting at any age, and we're prepping for 2032, are we not?
look, that's definitely in the background, but like I said at the time, I don't know if my eyesight's going to hold up. So I need a plan B for the plan B. Okay?
Okay. Okay. And is this golf? Are you telling me this is golf?
Golf. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right. Come
you
at
know,
me. What do you got?
not a lot. That's the problem, really.
I love it. Let me just do one quick comparison. So from tennis to golf, we've talked about smash one more racket, Laura, and you're playing with a cricket bat. So golf is not that. We can't let our head go. How does golf Laura differ from tennis Laura?
I'd love to say there's so much change and I've grown and I've really developed, but tell you what, golf tests you. It is not for the faint-hearted.
It's in this moment that I'm so disappointed we live so far apart because I don't want to play golf with you, just so we're really on the same page, but
Oh.
I want to witness you playing golf. I will drive the buggy, also probably not licensed to do that given some of my experiences of being the buggy driver, but however, I would like to experience this. Tell me your golf pursuit. What are you doing?
Well, really, I'm just trying to hit the ball in the hole at the moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah, good objective, like that.
so I think when you've been an athlete and you've had a focus and you have given 100% to a sport, that want to dive 100% into something doesn't go away necessarily. You know, you
Yep.
then dive into your studies and then you dive into your career. And then it's almost as though we punish ourselves as athletes and past athletes where there's any form of downtime and we're like, what are we doing? I need to be doing
Yeah,
something. I've got
gosh,
all this
that's real.
drive
Yep.
and I am absolutely preaching to the choir here, my friend.
And the choir hears you. Do you reckon there's a relationship, and you probably already know this, maybe we should have researched it before I asked this question, didn't tell you I was gonna ask. Do you reckon there's a relationship between type A personalities and athletes?
Oh, 100%.
Gotta be. There's gotta be, right?
100%. Yeah. No,
Because
it's
everyone we've spoken to has gone on to go, "Well, 24 hours in a day, if I sleep for, I don't know, a handful, here's how I can fill all the others."
what I do enjoy is that very few of us will admit that we're type A. We like to pretend that we're not or
Is that a
very
thing?
chill.
Is that a thing? No one told me that I was supposed to be chill about it. Okay, sure, whatever. I'm gonna be
I
casual
think
about this
you were
from
too
now on.
far gone, so no
Too
one
far.
said anything.
Mate, I'm not even sure I can hide it. I can't hide it.
No, it doesn't come across.
No. No, thank you. Thank you for that. And speaking of which, what both of us needed in our workload was to start a podcast. So maybe this journey confirms exactly what we were just talking about. On top of the things we do in sport already, what we needed to do was chuck a little podcast in the mix.
But this feels like the downtime. I love hearing about everybody's journeys and their
So
stories
good.
and giving them a platform. And to me, it's relaxing. It's like, oh, I'm so happy that this story is out there now. I'm so happy that I
Yeah.
know this. And I feel like we're learning so much about the various sports as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
there's so
agree.
many sports where I would have gone, no, I don't know if I'd give that one too much of time in my day. Now I'm invested. Now I'm like a
Yeah,
super
yeah, yeah.
fan. I want tickets to the next show. Like it's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting at 2032. We've talked about this.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'll be right
not
there
sure
with
when I'm
you.
gonna train. Not sure when I'm gonna train, but I'll let you know when it starts.
Great.
But it is entirely true, right? That through putting the time into this podcast, we're the ones that are getting the fruit.
Yeah.
Irrespective of what anyone else hears or sees or engages with, you and I, two very, very curious brains, have spent hours in each day with our eyes wide open going, "What? Tell
Yeah.
me that again. Like, is that true?"
And type A's. So we dissect them as well. We're like,
Yeah,
no,
we
I want
do.
to know
Well,
this
not the
part of it.
guests. We
No.
don't dissect our guests. No. No, no, no. We dissect their stories and their sport.
Oh, that
Anyway,
got grim.
join us sometime. It's really fun here, we promise. I think that, the journey of Almost Pro for me has been the true joy. The moment of a very unexpected call up to Boston that I think both of us were incredibly grateful for in postgraduate world, and the people that we got to meet along that journey. The most giving lecturer at the university
Oh, for sure.
who saw us and said, "This feels like a good pairing. Let's bring them together and see what they can achieve in this setting," and has continued to champion us and so many others in the sporting space and give so much to the field of sport that we are actively pursuing them as a guest on one of our podcasts because we believe their knowledge is so, so deserving of being shared with the world. And if we can be a percentage of how we get that story out, we're both ready. So ready to tell the story. But I think the bit that we both spend very, very little time pondering or even discussing is, where is Almost Pro going? What do we want to do with it? What do we want from it? And I think about this very rarely. I think it was kind of this very brief concept of, Laura, we have to respond to the people saying, "Who are you?" and or someone who knew you saying, "Who's she?" or knew
Mm.
me saying, "Who's she?" And that it was only then that we were like, what types of things should, or would they want to hear about? And in our discussions, we were like, well, we need to talk about the pod, how it was born and where it's going. And we left it at that. And then now we find ourselves going, we kind of got to mention, what do we want to do with this? Where do we want this to go? Do you want to tell me what you reckon? What do you reckon?
I feel like it was almost automatically understood. It was like a mutual understanding straight away that, okay, we want these stories heard and from all across the world. I think that's the bit that got me right back to the bar in Boston is the amount of people that sort of jumped on board from all across the world. They went, yeah, I've got this story, I've got this story. And so we talk about having the 99% having their voices heard. And I am happy to have all of the 99% voices heard and their stories shared because they are remarkable. And I would love to be able to be a part of that and providing that platform to have this out there. And who knows, maybe this will help as well impact sport organizations and teaching across various sports as well. What about you? Where do you see it going?
I think for me, Almost Pro has been about the athletes and the people that help them build their story. For me, I would love to continue to create education in that space. So to
Yeah.
continue to be able to tell the story that says, like we had with Phil just recently, what on earth is the gymnastics scoring system?
Yeah.
So in amongst being able to draw from these people the incredible accomplishments they've put into however much of their life they've already lived, I also want our listeners to know more about sports in the way that you and I find ourselves awestruck as we understand more of what's happening in spaces we never played in, but whether we didn't have the opportunity or it just didn't interest us or whatever, but just a curiosity that allows us to unpack that new knowledge and deliver it in a way that our audience can receive it
Mm.
without even knowing they wanted it,
Yeah.
you know? Like, so it's that for me. And then look, if I was dreaming, the thing I would love most is that maybe one day we could record in the same country. Be cool.
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, that'd be great.
Be novel. And probably the last question that we will answer for our listeners. What's your role on Almost Pro, Laura? I don't want to ask.
Well, I think my main role at the moment is chief of editing. I have somehow landed this position, which is no small task. I definitely thought I was picking the small task in
Cute.
my own true fashion, but it turns out it is not.
You were that kid in class.
I might
I'll,
have
t-
been.
I'll take
Yeah,
that task. And
yeah, that's it.
whoops. Bad choice, Laura.
Picked
Bad
the wrong
choice.
one. Should have been listening more clearly.
Yeah, yeah. But so Laura is chief in edits. She makes all of the episodes actually come together. I just blah blah in the
No.
record.
Okay, so
No, wait. But in terms of the recording, I just do the blah blah with no regard for how Laura's going to make that an episode. There's things that come to mind, so I just start chatting. And then Laura has the ultimate quest in the background to go, okay, where am I going to put that? How do I stitch this whole thing together? But also, how do I make sure it's not 3 hours long? And she's our maestro.
maybe with the editing, but the actual brains of the operation and the content and everything else, every other aspect is definitely well taken care of by you. So I know that I can sit back and mess around with the editing and do the tedious stuff because you are looking after literally every other aspect. You are the master of organizing calendars and time management and guest reach outs and everything like that. So I think we make a pretty good team.
We're a cool team. To the bar in Boston, we say thank you.
Definitely.
Big time, big time. Today, we've given you an insight into your hosts, Frances and Laura, past athletes, current industry experts, and your resident storytellers. While we haven't shared the details of our sporting or professional lives in full yet, We hope this episode has helped you to feel you know us a little better and that you can take something from our conversation today into your world.
Whether you're listening from home, the gym, or on the go, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe to stay on the Almost Pro journey. And if you've got a story to share or know someone who does, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to almostpropodcast.com or our social media pages at Almost Pro Podcast to get in touch.